Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan.
Hi, I'm Jessica Faust. Double wave.
We are we are literary agents who have taken our popular blog to YouTube to discuss all things publishing. And today we're talking about Jessica's favorite topic. So, or at least every client ever that Jessica has signed will feel it is. We're talking about all of the reasons why your ending might not be working.
It's my
And
Achilles
Jessica,
heel as an agent.
yeah, Jessica has written an edit letter for every one of these, probably per year. So
I am notorious, and maybe it's because I do so much mystery, thriller, suspense, where the
yeah.
ending is so important, but I am notorious for taking on books and saying, it's so great, but the ending needs to be completely redone.
I definitely think it is a symptom of mystery, suspense, thriller because it's all about the buildup, and the buildup has to lead to something. And
Yeah.
I think that you don't want to be underwhelmed. You have high standards for your level of whelm.
Well, I think I don't even know if this one's on our list, but well, it is. It's actually the first one. I think the biggest thing
Not
is
at all.
that when you're reading a book, the book is giving you this like emotional story, and if that ending doesn't match everything that has led up to it, it fails. And to be honest, it shouldn't even just match. It should be bigger and better, but it also
Right.
has to have that same feeling. Like the ending can't suddenly be slapstick in a very serious book, to use an extreme, or you can't be writing a suspense and have it some sort of very heavy romantic happily ever after. That's not what your readers are expecting after what you've given them for the first 300 pages.
I also think that it's like convenience is a really common way that I see this happen is where you have a lot of tension and a lot of stakes, and then something super convenient happens that resolves your
Yes.
book. And that, for me, that dissolves all of the tension, all of the emotion, everything that we were leading up to, because it's like, oh, that's it. Like, that's what we were waiting on. We were waiting on this chance occurrence or this super easy, convenient thing to happen for the book to resolve. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, one of the most common ways, especially in mystery, suspense, thriller, that I see all of that just sort of drained from an ending.
Yeah, and with that in mind, one of the things I often see, particularly in like suspense and thriller, is that the ending somehow turns into a mystery. So we lose all that tension, all that suspense, all that thriller, and it's just a solid solving of a mystery,
Mm-hmm.
which takes away from everything that I wanted. The flip side to that is the one that is sort of a slow build, but all of a sudden the ending feels like this, like, whoa, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden things are exploding and like, people are running from like mythical creatures and like none of it fits the book.
Yeah. And you have to, well, this is, everyone's going to hate this, but you have to know your genre. And the best way to do that is to read a lot and not
Yeah.
just read your genre. You have to read all the genres. This way you can sort of know what your readers are going to expect from an ending, right? Like if you're doing romance, you should have a happily ever after. If you're doing mystery, suspense, thriller, a crime should be solved. There should be a twist. There should be, there should be those certain things that are necessary in the genre that you're writing.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to know that and have a really good grasp of it is if you've read enough.
Yeah. I think you have to plan for it too. I think
Yeah.
one of the problems I see are that authors are sort of plan out the book and they write this really great book, but it sometimes feels like they didn't have a plan for the ending and they just write it. But I think the other biggest problem is that we rewrite the beginning of the book probably every time we sit down with the book.
I was just going to say,
Yeah, but then we do the ending and we're done, right?
yeah. If you don't plan for an ending, there's plenty of pantsers, right? People that just write by the seat of their pants. There are plenty of folks that do that and write strong books. I think the key that you're probably missing is they're also revisers, and they're happy to go back and revise that book as needed. Because if you're following the story threads throughout the end, by the time you get to the end, I can almost guarantee there are several threads throughout the beginning of the book that need to be tightened, changed, fixed, strengthened, cut in general. So when you get to the end of that book, you have a full picture now. You need to
Yeah,
take a step back and start again and work your way through and make sure it all ties itself together.
yeah, very much so, very much so.
Okay, so then there are two other classic types of endings that don't work. There's the overwriter, people who tie everything up into a neat little bow and make sure they explain every single detail, and the ending is just bogged down in
Yeah.
logistics.
Or an epilogue.
Oh,
Either of those.
I do not like an epilogue. I know we sometimes disagree on prologues, but I do not like an epilogue.
I like the idea of seeing what happens with these characters that I've fallen in love with. But the truth is, I think it's better to be able to imagine that and keep that and shut the book and think, oh, and come up with my own idea of where they are. I think an epilogue can a lot of times ruin the romanticism. And I'm not talking about romance, I'm talking about any book, ruin the romanticism of the story. Like, you want to imagine that in a happily ever after, these two went off and lived the life that you want them to live. You want to imagine in the suspense, so however they overcame it. I don't want it all spelled out for me.
Sometimes just change the epilogue to the last chapter and make it closer to the end.
Yeah, or just, I mean, I think it's important sometimes for the authors to write an epilogue for themselves so that they can have closure on the characters, but it
But
doesn't
that's also helpful. I think that could be a really good technique for judging your ending. If
Yeah,
you say, okay, so this is not where in my head this story stops, where can write the epilogue of where you think that story stops, and then see if you have a satisfactory ending for yourself, because then I think your readers will feel the same way too.
yeah, very true, very true.
So the other end is we have an underwriter for the ending. And those are stories that you close the book and you're like, what the crap? There are things that weren't tied up. There was a storyline that dropped. There was a character that went missing, or we had a problem that I never got the solution to. There's just not a full satisfactory ending that makes the book worth having been read. And I
And I
don't mean
think
that in a snarky way. I mean, like, you don't get the, like you said, you don't get the closure of having literally closed the book.
you're not satisfied.
Yeah.
You should finish a book satisfied.
Yeah.
I think with that in mind, one of the things to consider is that endings happen throughout the book. So if you have, let's say it's a romance and you have a sort of a secondary character romance, both of those romances aren't likely to happen at the end. Your main character's romance is what's going to happen at the end, but the other one still has to wrap up for your readers, unless you're writing a second book. But that still has to wrap up for your readers. But sometimes that ending comes 3/4 of the way through the book because you're still working this out.
There's like I'll try and draw it if I can remember. There was like a meme that I saw where the plot arc isn't supposed to just be like this.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like that. And you have all of these little plots that are ending along the
Yeah.
way. I wrote that in the middle of my notebook, so you know that I really committed to educating you all on that plot arc, because that's going to bother me in about 4 months.
I was gonna say that's gonna stress you out so much. You're
I'm gonna be so upset in 4 months when I get to that page. So, I'm gonna try and forget about it right now for the sake of finishing this video, but
we need a good ending. The video
I've
has
made
to have a good
some grave errors. But yeah, you have, the book is not just everything leads up to this one thing at the end. You're supposed to have those subplots that ebb and flow of story and tension and things that are getting resolved. Especially if you're writing a mystery, we would call them red herrings. All of those things are what make a more nuanced and complete story. And I would also say on the flip side of that, which is our last point here, you can't start things at the end too, right? Like, things usually start a little earlier on. So having that surprise plot twist in like the last 20 pages that make no sense is not satisfactory, because there's no breadcrumbs, there's no trail, there's no starting point for that throughout the book. So I think it's also crucial to know that what starts at the book ends at the book, but what ends at the book should start at the book. That makes sense?
Yeah, it did. It's going to make everyone think a little bit, but it does.
Sorry. I just wrote it in the middle of my notebook for you. You gotta go with me on this journey.
Buck up, everybody. Buck up.
Yeah. But yeah,
No,
books
I
are...
agree. I think endings are really tough. We put so much emphasis on the beginning and how important a good beginning is, but a good ending shouldn't be left to last, so to speak. It's just as important. And there are so many books, I think, as readers, manuscripts, where we get to that last third of the book or that last quarter of the book, and that's where it falls apart. because the time was not spent to put the same energy into that as it was the rest of the book.
Yeah, one of the things that I would be more than happy to be a part of the change of in publishing is to sort of rid everyone of the idea that we just have to hook an agent or hook an editor. You have to do more than that. And I think once you realize that, you'll give all that you're giving to your first 50 pages to all 300, 350 pages. And I think that's often missed. So hopefully this video helps with that.
Hopefully that was a good ending.
Yeah, it was. I think that was a good ending. I think we
think
had the starts, the finishes. We did all the things.
I think we nailed it. We even
yeah.
ruined your notebook.
That's God damn it. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm gonna go buy a new notebook. We'll be back here next week and see you later.
Bye.